understand it all. We are the only society in history which says power comes from God to each one of you personally, and you are personally sovereign. You personally have power, and you loan power to the state. The state does not loan power to you.
Yeah.
The reason that matters, notice how the Constitution begins. We, the people of the United States. It doesn't begin we, the politicians, we, the bureaucrats, we, the judges. It begins we, the people. And that's why this issue of liberty is important. Who is the president to describe for the rest of us the house we should live in, the car we should drive, the job we should have, the religion we should practice?
Yes.
But Obama's vision is one of total power in the White House, in which they get to tell us virtually everything, and we're supposed to obey. We are citizens, and the government should serve us. There's a second thing that happened in the last few days that I raised a serious direct question about. And that is the killing of 2 Americans in Afghanistan in 4 hours. And I just want to be very clear about this. When churches are burned in Nigeria, no one apologizes.
No.
When churches are burned in Egypt, no one apologizes. When the Christian population of Iraq drops from 1,200,000 to 500,000, no one apologizes. When churches are burned in Malaysia, no one apologizes. No. And frankly, when Muslims destroy mosques, destroy Qurans, go look at Libya. Go look at Syria. Have you seen great outcries against Assad? You think all the bombing they did in Syria recently, all the artillery they fired, they weren't desecrating places? Mm-hmm. But when our enemies deliberately exploit fanaticism to try to make a case against us, while we are defending them, there's something profoundly wrong. And when the commander-in-chief doesn't stand up for the young men and women risking their lives under it,
wrong.
I believe Afghanistan owes the United States an apology. And I believe we have an obligation to stand up for religious liberty. And I think one of the reasons I want an American energy program to make us totally independent of the Middle East is I want to say to the Saudis, by what right do you deny the practice in a church or a synagogue? By what right is religious bigotry fine as long as it's in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
But then you come and lecture us? And I think we have to confront just how one-sided this is. We had a Moroccan man arrested on Saturday trying to bomb the U.S. Capitol. And in this administration, under Barack Obama, you cannot describe accurately what motivates him.
Right.
It is politically incorrect.
Right.
And so you can't say, this is a guy who's part of a radical Islamist worldview and who believes that it's his duty to blow up the U.S. Capitol. Now, I'm not confused by that. That means that that man is my enemy. And I believe the job of the United States is to defeat our enemies. And I don't have a problem about communications. When Ahmadinejad, the dictator of Iran, says, I believe that we can eliminate Israel from the face of the earth. I actually, as a historian, have a pretty good idea what he's saying. Now, Obama doesn't. Obama thinks this is a problem in communication, and if only we could chat together, at some point we'd all understand each other. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I don't think singing Kumbaya with Ahmadinejad is a foreign policy. Similarly, when Hamas says, not a single Jew will remain, I think I have a pretty good sense what that sentence means. And yet, in our elites, they are so frightened of reality that they live a deliberate lie. They are totally afraid to tell the truth about how threatened we are. And frankly, with the rise of nuclear weapons, the threats become horrifying. And that's why I will say to all of you, if an Israeli prime minister says that the fate of Israel requires him or her to act, I am not going to say, oh, why don't you risk the survival of your country on another meeting? And I would say to the Iranians, if you are determined to continue trying to build a nuclear weapon, just understand you are going to bring terrible consequences down on your head, and it will be your fault, and you will have earned it. Let me talk just for a couple minutes about creating jobs, because I think this is the other great issue this year, and it's a place where Obama's over here and we're over here. I worked with Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp and others in the late 70s and early 80s. We developed a model for creating jobs. Lower taxes, lower regulations, more American energy, and be positive about people who create jobs. What was the result? This is a fact. What was the result? 16 million new jobs in the Reagan years. I came back as Speaker. We'd flattened out. We'd had 2 tax increases, one by a Republican president, one by a Democrat. We came back. We picked up the Reagan playbook. Lower taxes, less regulation, American energy, be positive about job creation. In 4 years' time, we created 11 million new jobs. Now, Obamaism is the opposite. Reagan was for lower taxes, Obama's for higher taxes. In fact, he couldn't even help himself yesterday. In the middle of an energy speech, he proposes $4 billion of taxes on the oil companies. I mean, this is like saying, let me punish the people that I hope will save us. You know, because guess what the $4 billion tax increase in the oil companies becomes? It becomes a higher price of gasoline. I mean, this is a president who doesn't get it. So, what do we need to do? On taxes, I am for zero capital gains tax so that hundreds of billions of dollars will come to the U.S. to be invested. A 12.5% corporate tax rate so that the companies from Canada will come here because we'll actually have a lower tax rate than Canada and we'll be competitive worldwide and we'll bring home about $700 billion in profits that are currently locked up overseas. I am for 100% expensing, which means if you buy any new equipment, whether you're a farmer, a factory, a doctor, you name it, if you buy new equipment, you write it off in 1 year. Our goal is we want Americans to have the most modern equipment in the world. We want them to have the best program possible so that they can compete with China and India and win. And in order to match people up with equipment, I would modify unemployment compensation. So if you sign up for unemployment compensation, you also join a business-led training program, so we're improving your skills. But I would never again give people 99 weeks of money for doing nothing. Fundamentally wrong. And in 99 weeks, you can earn an associate degree. And it's really wrong to give people money to waste part of their life. In addition, we would abolish the death tax permanently because it's fundamentally wrong to punish people. And we would have an optional 15% flat tax, which means you could, this is something you do in Hong Kong. You could either keep the current tax code, all of your deductions, all the paperwork, or you could fill in one page, here's what I earned, here's my number of dependents, here's 15%. Now, some people in the Washington establishment have noticed that my tax plan is not revenue neutral. And I want to assure all of you, they're right. This is called a tax cut. It's not designed to be revenue neutral. It's designed to give you more money. There's a very simple principle. I want to shrink Obama's government to the size of the revenues. I don't want to raise your taxes to catch up with Obama's credit card. Need dramatically less regulation. I propose that we replace the Environmental Protection Agency with a brand new Environmental Solutions Agency that has to apply common sense. and Drug Administration, whose job is to be in the laboratory, understanding the science, and accelerate getting it to the patient, not block it from getting it to the patient. I want to campaign with a team this fall, and I would ask the members of the House and Senate to commit this fall before the election that, if elected, they will stay in office on January 3rd, and by the time I'm sworn in on January 20th, they will have repealed Obamacare. I want them to have repealed the Dodd-Frank bill, which is killing small businesses. And I want them to repeal Sarbanes-Oxley, which has added paperwork and no advantage. So, ideally, on the very first day in office, I could sign all 3 repeals as a way of starting pretty aggressively. In addition, on the very first day, I'll sign a series of executive orders about 2 hours after the inaugural address. The first executive order will abolish all of the White House czars as of I'll also sign an executive order that day authorizing the Keystone Pipeline so Canada can start. And I'll sign an executive order transferring the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to recognize this has been the most anti-religious administration in American history. On a dozen fronts they have attacked religion. On one occasion they were so far off base that the Supreme Court unanimously, 9-0, rejected what they were doing. Recently they've declared war on the Catholic Church. I think it is a fundamental violation of the Declaration of Independence and a fundamental violation of the First Amendment, what Obama's doing. My pledge to you is that one of the executive orders on January 20th will repeal every single anti-religious act of this government as of that date. Our goal is, by the time Obama lands in Chicago, we will have repealed about 40% of it.